Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are back for another episode of the Buckeye Roast. It's your boy Ron James here with my guy QP Ski. Q, how you doing?
Hanging in there early in the morning. Undefeated showdown on Saturday. I guess can't complain. How are you?
Showdown with an undefeated team. I'm not sure it's an undefeated showdown as the Buckeyes are 9-1 with a loss to the number one ranked Oregon Ducks. But I get the sentiment. It is going to be a matchup with an undefeated team in Indiana, a chance for the Buckeyes to derail their Big Ten miracle run that they currently have. Indiana currently 10-0, sitting atop the Big Ten, tied with the Oregon Ducks, but the Buckeyes still have an opportunity to control their own destiny when it comes to the Big Ten championship, as the Buckeyes, if they handle business on the way out this season, will end up playing in the Big Ten championship with an opportunity potentially to avenge their loss against Oregon if they handle business on their way out the rest of the season. But we got plenty to talk about. It is a Tuesday, so of course we have our guy Terry here. We will get right to him. Terry, what is up?
What's up with you guys, man? How's your morning going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I know Q's is a little earlier than ours, but I'm doing all right.
What
Yeah,
morning?
man, I don't know. Q be getting up early as heck for this. That's crazy.
Absolutely, man. We got plenty to talk about. We got national news. We got Ohio State news. We got an Indiana game to preview. We got plenty to get to. Q, what do you want to start with?
Well, first of all, I got to shout out Gmo, I guess. He was the first one in the chat. So shout out to Gmo. Definitely Google him, and somehow he's been an Indiana super fan lately. So make sure everybody beat him in the chat. So
Well, he used to be a Wolverine, and he had to abandon that Michigan shit when he saw them step on the field. So, I mean, I'm glad that he found a new second Big Ten team to try to ride their coattails to find someone that can beat Ohio State. It's easy for us to hate on Miami. All we got to do is root for Georgia Tech, and we know we're good for at least one win a year.
you know what they say, Cobra Kai never dies. Squad. But yeah, man, so shout out to him. Like that video. If you're on Twitter, hit that like and retweet. Let's jump into it. So got some news for y'all. So I'll start with this for you, Terry. Let me get your reaction. So Lane Kiffin on conference championship. So Lane Kiffin revealed that some coaches don't want to play in the SEC championship due to the college football playoff. He said, I quote, I've talked to other coaches. The reward to get a bye in the college football playoff versus the risk to get knocked out completely, that's a big risk. Do you feel like Lane has a point here? Go ahead, give me your idea. Give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has a point in that. Like, we kind of knew that this was going to happen, right? Like, if you look at the way the college football playoff is now, if a team has 2 losses already, dude, and they're in the running for their conference championship, it's probably better for them to not go there, because if you lose that game and you have 3 losses, you're probably going to get left out. Especially if there's another team right behind you in your conference that also has 2 losses. Now you have 3. I guess the one thing that could be a deciding factor there is maybe if you beat that team already when you played them. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with the sentiment, though, to be honest.
It's so funny that you bring this up, Q, because I was on the timeline yesterday, and I posted something about Ohio State, and an Oregon fan just responded, "Go Ducks." And I'm like, "I'll see you in Indy." They're like, "Joke's on you. We want the 5th seed." And it feels like some teams would rather not play in this game or not have the path of the 1 seed. So I wouldn't be surprised by what Lane is saying, that some teams are jockeying for a certain positioning because they don't want to be where they're currently slotted or seated, or want to play in a conference championship game when they believe if they get that bye week would be more valuable than hosting a home game in the playoff.
Yeah, I could definitely believe it depending on the positioning. We've talked about it when Ohio State lost and that initial playoff bracketology came out. That path was way better than the one we had before. Like we lost, it was like, oh, we get Navy then BYU. Okay, so I could definitely see that. And on Lane's side, yeah, is it worth it playing for an SEC championship when you possibly get knocked out and miss the playoffs entirely? versus a team who wasn't as good as you and made it and now has one less loss? Probably not. So I think he has a fair point here, but we will see how it goes down. But yeah, Terry, I was waiting for something to happen where at least like that's not worth it anymore.
But the thing is too, dude, the 5th seed, the way that this works out, the 5th seed is probably always going to be like the 2nd or 3rd best team in college football anyways. So it kind of makes sense for that to be a good spot, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because if you're going to make it to where 2 teams from the same conference can't be in the top 4, the 5th seed should be a good seed, just because, I mean, what are the odds that like the 2 best teams in college football what are the odds that the 4 conference championships are the actual 4 best teams in college football? It's probably not going to happen, right? Yeah. So that 5th seed should be the best team that did not win their conference, and they honestly should have a good spot. So I don't really hate it.
I think you make a great point there with the 5th seed likely being one of the top 4 teams in the country, but because of the seeding due to conference championships, that they're going to get punished and be put in the 5 spot. Do you think that's a case to do away with the automatic bids and seedings? Because it seems like in year 1 that there's literally no use for do you feel like the ACC champion or the Big 12 champion should be rewarded with a first-round bye with the season that they played? Like, I don't know they necessarily deserve it, or it's beneficial for the sport to reward these unbalanced conferences for championships when you have the opportunity to properly seed them based on their performance and record this season. I don't know if we should be shuffling the bracket due to conference championships in conferences that we agree are inferior. Like, I don't think anyone's arguing that Ole Miss would win the ACC this year.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Georgia honestly would win the Big 12, and they're not even a playoff team potentially. So it's just crazy to me that we're rewarding all of these teams with these top seeds and automatic bids. Like, get rid of all of that shit. To me personally, I'm not the guy that's out here screaming Cincinnati could have won the national championship. UCF. I am one that screams that because it's funny, but these teams really don't have a realistic chance of winning a national championship, especially when they have to win 3 games against top 12 opponents. Like, please show me the last G5 team that beat 3 top 12 opponents in a season. Like, I doubt we even have an example of that. So the idea that one's going to do that to win a national championship on the highest scale just seems irrational to me. I feel like they need to come up with a cleaner format for selecting these top 12.
So let me push back on it just a little bit. Hold on, give me 1 second, Q. So if you are the Big 12 champion, right? Let's say you come in at the number 4 seed because you're the worst conference champion. You're then rewarded with a bye week, and in your first game, you have to play, correct me if I'm wrong here, you have to play the number 5 seed, right? Assuming they win their game. Yeah. So it's not really that much of an advantage, dude. You're putting them, that number 4 team is going to get a bye week, but then they're going to get met.
But what if they win the conference championship and they're ranked 9?
Yeah, so then they're going to go to number 4. Okay, they're going to get a bye week, and then their reward for doing that is, well, now you have one of the best teams in college football that's at the 5 seed who's going to take care of business the week before you, and then they're going to come and play you.
Yeah.
So it kind of works out, but I get what you're saying. Like, the conference championship thing, it could really get messy with some teams that don't deserve to be there.
How many people would argue that Colorado is a top 4 team in the country?
No one.
If Colorado wins the Big 12, if Colorado wins the Big 12 championship, they're going to be the number 4 seed. I don't know. I get what you're saying, as they're going to get punished and lose, but then you'd also have people that would argue, well, they should be a 12 seed and they should lose in the first round to the number 5 or something like that. So we'll see.
Let me ask you this, Ron. One more thing. Let me ask you this. So what spot do you think is better, number 4 or number 5?
I would say probably 5.
All right, well, there you go. So,
but that's not the point. If Colorado were to not be guaranteed the number 4 seed, they wouldn't be 5. That
would be like 9.
I guess it would be like 9. That's what I'm saying. So like, these teams that are in the 3 or 4, they're not necessarily going to play 5 or 6. I'm saying that we could potentially end up with conference championships that are champions that are 11, 12, 9. I could see a scenario where some of them are further down in the rankings. So guaranteeing them those top 4 and that bye, I don't think it's necessarily fair. But then you could also see a scenario where a team doesn't make the Big 10 or Big 12 or SEC championship and end up with a bye. And I don't know how fair that is. It almost seems like, do you think that there are 12 teams that could win the national championship this year?
No.
Do you guys think there's 8?
No.
You think a 4-team playoff could have solved and could have sorted out who the best team in college football is this year?
No, I don't. I don't think that it could have.
I don't got it right, but that's almost impossible to say.
So who do you think the 4? If you were trying to decide, if the season ended today, and you were trying to decide and let us know in the chat too, if you were ending the season today, and it's not seeding the best teams, it's not any of that. It is you are trying to determine who the best team in college football is. Who are your 4 teams?
Well, actually,
let us know in the chat too.
Hold on, Terry. Let's hold that question because I have that later in the show to debate. So let's pause that for a second because I want you to think of your top contenders that could actually win a championship. Make a quick list here, so you don't got to do it on the spot. I'll give you a little time, and we'll jump back to it because I thought of this before when I asked this question, so I wrote it in. Ron thinking ahead here, or he's reading the notes. What are the 2?
Thinking ahead because I didn't read any.
I me either. Ron, though, I don't think this seeding thing is exactly fair. I couldn't say Boise State wouldn't deserve the 4 seed if they were in the ACC because they might win it. I don't know. So I don't think it's necessarily fair because those teams may play tougher. You may get an upset and get a bye, and then 1 seed looks a lot better than it did the week before. So I kind of agree there. But while you think of that, I'm going to ask another question in college football. Northwestern. Let's talk a little Big Ten here. So everybody knows they revealed their $850 million stadium. Looks nice. Specs look good. Can't wait to play in there. All that good stuff. But On3 had a question for them. So Andy Stales for On3 asked a question. He said, spent nearly $1 billion on a stadium. But what if we spent that on players? Terry, they had $1 billion to play with, obviously had that donated, put it in the bank, said we're going to change Northwestern football. It looks good, but what would $850 million do for a roster? So my question to you is this. Was it better to spend that money on the new stadium, or are we handing out deals and flipping this roster to one of the best in America at minimum? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think every college is different, bro. Like Northwestern, for them, it was probably better to just get the stadium. And then, if they can still keep raising funds, then they can start getting some more players to come in. But you can't bring in 5-star future NFL players all over the field and then not have a good stadium and not like the kids don't want that.
What do you mean? Look at Miami this year. They're fucking playing in an NFL stadium in front of a seat out, a bunch of people dressed up like seats. I don't know how much the stadium matters. If you look at Ohio State's $20 million, I'm no mathematician, but $850 million is a lot of $20 million. So I feel like they have a couple seasons together. Say they double the expense that they put on Ohio State's roster, and they're spending $40 million a year. They'll still have $400 million in 10 years. Check my math. If they do that and they're spending $40 million a year, I think they would be able to generate enough revenue to build a fucking stadium on the back of 10 years of $40 million rosters. Like I think that they're cart in front of the horse scenario here, where they're still using old antiquated NCAA logic, where it's like, oh, well, we don't have anyone to pay, so let's just fucking make administrators millionaires and buy facilities. And it's like, or hear me out, we could try to win games. Crazy idea. I know they're smarter than me up there at Northwestern. I only went to Slippery Rock. They, they're J school elites out there. So I have no idea if I'm just talking out of my ass, but I think maybe winning games and having a good roster may get you a stadium in the long run.
Yeah, and Terry, I'll let you follow up after this.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, actually, 850 million. The interest alone is gonna buy you one of the best rosters in America if you just throw it in a fucking savings account. To be honest, no, without even spending the money and getting more people to donate and adding in revenue, and eventually you can probably put that on the stadium. But $850 million, if I'm giving out 1 million a season to my 82-man roster, that's or 85-man roster, that's 85 probably really fucking good players. So I would say, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we're gonna be asking this question when they do everything of like, would you rather have done that or you rather spend it on a roster? Because that's the most important thing. But that is a lot of money to build a stadium that you don't really need. I'm gonna be honest. It looks amazing. It looks
It
cool.
does.
You can probably get some soccer games, some international venues, some good artists in there. I get it. They want to do it for the community and all that good stuff, but I don't know anything that cures the community more than winning. I mean, we all play high school ball. You see, you see what that does to the community, how many people rally around a team when they're actually good. So the Northwestern alumni, with the amount of money they have, they could have squeezed another 850 million out of them in another 10 years and had 10-win seasons. So maybe that's where I roll with. But Terry, I'll let you follow.
No, I mean, you guys didn't say nothing wrong. I mean, I just think it's different for every school. You know what I mean? Like I don't necessarily know if for Northwestern that was the wrong thing to do, just because like I don't know if Northwestern's about to like. I mean, you're talking about like an exorbitant amount of money. You're talking about 80 million. Okay, cool, or whatever it was. You're talking about like
850, 10 times that.
Okay, all right.
Well,
But you're talking about an exorbitant amount of money. So if anybody wanted to spend that much money on a roster, then like, okay, that's gonna work. But like, that's also not realistic. I mean, plus you're getting into like market sharing, like what we have coming up here in the next couple of years with college football, where the actual school is going to be paying at least a certain amount towards the players, but they're going to have a cap on that. So it's not like Ohio State. We just have a lot of money, so we can just go out and just buy every single player. But I don't know. Like I said, I just think it's different for every single school.
Yeah, and who knows? Northwestern's not even going to be able to compete when Michigan's paying $10.5 million for just a quarterback. Who knows how much they're going to be willing to spend? $80 million might not be enough for them to try to resurrect their program. I want to get a comment from our guy Chad. Shout out to Chad. If Northwestern can do it, we can surely pay $1.2 million for a better field surface. I agree. Northwestern have $850 million for a whole new stadium, and we're like, grass can't do it. I see fucking golf courses do it all over the place. Like, you're telling me you can't get 100 yards worth of grass in order for a football game?
It's too expensive.
Everybody was worried about the field at Wrigley, man, and it was probably the best playing surface we played on this whole year.
A lot nicer than the one we have currently at home.
Players look fast. I don't know what that's like. Confident, fast, they can cut. What?
Holding it down. But yeah, I think this is going to be a future discussion that we continue to have. But I have one that I want to move on to, and then we can hop back into our discussion from before. So none of us like this coach, but Dabo Swinney again slams the targeting rule that's going on. And my question for y'all is this. Targeting rule has been around since 2008. I know it doesn't feel like it. I know it feels like it maybe has only been around for the last 5, 10 years or so. It really doesn't feel that long to me, maybe to you both. But the rule also has found a way to derail some game in pretty much every season since probably the college football playoff had started or games back for a while. We still don't know what this rule is, and that was Dabo's point. He said, we still don't know what the targeting rule is. So I ask you both, going into the playoff, with this rule being around so long, do you feel like the non-clarification of this rule is yet going to derail another season for a team? Because it's happened to us twice. So do you feel like it's a possibility, again, that we will see this and continue to see this every season in college football?
Well, I mean, it's happened in every season, so I feel like it's just part of the game at this point. It's like, fuck it. I mean, it's not an anomaly when it happens because it's like you have to make it to the national championship and avoid injuries, targeting calls, missed fumbles, bad refs, fucked up playing surfaces. It just seems like it's a part of the sport at this point. And I mean, I feel like the rule is well-intentioned and also not that hard to legislate. Like, I mean, I feel like it's like porn, when you see it, like it's obscene. Like, you can tell what a fucking targeting call is. It's not that hard to legislate. And I feel like they make it harder than it needs to be. I feel like Would I love to go back to the days where people were getting decapitated on the field, like when Ryan Clark and James Harrison were out there killing people in the AFC North? Sure, but they're also kids, and their health should be protected. So, like, I get the reasoning for the rule, and I mean, don't hit people in the head. I mean, that's pretty much where we're at. I feel like at some weeks in the NFL and college, I heard someone discussing it the other day, and they said, does it feel like we're no longer calling targeting and it's now becoming a PR penalty? Like, it's not really targeting, but that looked too violent on TV, so we have to penalize it. And I feel like that is kind of where my line is right now. Like, we can't become so pussy that, like, you can't tackle someone hard, and if you do, it's a penalty. But I mean, it serves a purpose, a solid purpose. I do think it has changed the way a lot of people have changed their approach to hitting and have tried to avoid these, like, career-ending type of headshots and earhole shots. So, I mean, I think they've done a good job legislating it out of the game. If they could just clean up the calls, because even if you have to have they do have an overhead official judging these things too in a replay form. So I do feel like for the most part, they do get them right on replay, but I really don't think targeting is that hard of a penalty to call these days. So I'm fine with it.
Terry.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with Ron there. And then as a team, like, you kind of just have to expect, like, if you're going to go into one of these big time matchups, like a playoff game, the Michigan game, stuff like that, and you're going to come out there with intensity and you're going to want to hit people hard, like, there's a chance that you might lose a player to targeting, because it's honestly hard to control sometimes too. Like, you know, you could lose your safety because a player just ducked at the last second and they hit him in the head. But that's also where, like, depth needs to be really important. You know what I mean? Like, how many times has Ohio State lost a player in a like playoffs type game, and it costed them the game because they didn't have nobody ready to step up? So I kind of tend to look at it that way more, like, hey, look, if we're going to come out here and play with this kind of intensity, then you as the backup need to be ready to go out there and play, because anything can happen.
I mean, I agree. I agree with Ron 200% that you know it if you see it. Unfortunately, it feels like the refs don't know it when they see it. And obviously, we famously dealt with this twice with Trevor Lawrence ducking his head. Sean Way goes out, completely kills the momentum in 2019. And so, like, from that point, the Buckeyes basically had to fight back to get in the game. They were already leading because it changed the dynamic so much. And then obviously the Marvin Harrison call that's been pretty talked about, and my most engaged post on Twitter, which is I still get notifications from that because it's still talking about that call. And we are now at 3 Marvin Harrison rookie in NFL. We're years out. So yeah, I understand it. It's one of those, but it inherently just feels like you don't get it right. And that call seems to be the one above all others that can change games. Like, I don't think there's any other rule that I see called constantly that really changes a game like that one does. So hopefully they figure it out. Do I feel like we are on the verge of a controversy again? Yeah, probably, because it tends to happen every year. Just hope, in the refs' sake, that they actually get it right, and we're not debating another call.
Hope it's not Caleb Bounce.
Exactly. It replaces him, and there goes the game. So. But wanted to hop back earlier before we hop into Ohio State talk. And Terry, I want to give it to you again. So UGA survives on Saturday. We had this talk about playoff seeding, getting knocked out. I wanted to know, what was your top 3 contenders now, a couple of weeks left, that can actually win a national championship? So I'll give you some time to think. Go for it.
I don't need to think. I'm going to go Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Those are your 3 that can win a natty right now.
Right now.
Ron.
If I was just doing a 14 playoff, you're not going to like
I only get 3. All right, go ahead.
Well, I had 3. Terry, we go for it. Let Ron go. You get your 4.
Well, I figured we were circling back to the earlier conversation where we talked about if there was a 14 playoff, and I was picking a 14 playoff to find the national champion. My 4 teams would be Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Georgia. I don't care about these other conferences. They can go fuck themselves. Like, to be completely honest, you see, like, Georgia beat Alabama. You have Texas with their record, their only loss to Georgia. Who else are we putting in here? Ole Miss? I mean, cool. They're cute. No one thinks Ole Miss is winning the Natty this year. If you do, please let me know in the chat. If you think Ole Miss is going to win a national championship or is a top 2 team in the SEC, you let me know, because I don't realistically think that they can win a national championship. If I was picking 4 teams to find the best team in college football, it would be those 4 teams.
Yeah, Terry, if you want to add a fourth, go ahead for it.
Yeah, not Georgia, Texas.
Yeah,
so who were your 4 again?
think
mine. It was Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Texas.
Notre Dame with a loss to NIU. That's who you're putting. See, and like that's the shit that I'm talking about. Like,
you put Georgia. You put Georgia and said no to Ole Miss.
Do we?
Ole Miss blew them out.
Do we need to see them play in the playoffs to know that you think you need to see Notre Dame play in the playoff to know that they can't win a national championship this year?
Yes, absolutely.
You believe Notre Dame is a current national championship contender?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Q?
Yeah, for me now, it's probably down to 3 teams. It's probably, and that's why I wrote 3 initially. But it was Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia. I think when it comes to are you laughing?
No, I'm laughing at Terry because I know Terry's sick. I know Terry's sick.
I'm not sick. I think Carson Beck would throw 5 interceptions versus Notre Dame. Come on, man.
Well, what I say is Notre Dame for me. Yes, they've had a good bounce back season. I don't think they could win a natty. Honestly, I think if they had to go to Tennessee, that's an L right there. I think if they had to go to Ole Miss, they would probably struggle to get a win right there. I think some teams in the SEC who maybe have a couple more losses probably could beat them. Texas may be the one, but after thinking about weeks of who is Texas beat and how they're probably in the same boat as Penn State as far as they have that loss against Georgia, then you look back around and you're like, these guys aren't consistent. They don't win games convincingly. They almost lost to Vanderbilt. Like there's just a lot of questions. So while if I had a fourth, I could probably put them in there. Do I feel like they are going to show up and show out on a national stage? No, I feel like they're going to do what they did last season and be out early. So those would probably be the 3 teams I would put. But if I had a fourth, it'd probably be Texas. But I mean, I guess you could argue Notre Dame. We don't know what they really are, but they lost to NIU. I don't think a team that loses to NIU should win a national championship unless everybody else just like we're not even playing hard today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm over here looking at Notre Dame's schedule, and they're looking like the Axis powers. They play Navy and Army. That would be very disrespectful for our troops to beat both service academies in 1 year. I think that would be some bullshit. But I'm looking at their schedule. I mean, is their best win Texas A&M?
Yeah. So Terry, if
Louisville,
if Notre Dame went on the road to Ole Miss or Tennessee, you think they will survive those trips, or one or the other? You think they would come out and be able to beat them and move on?
I think they could beat them. Absolutely. Yes. I'm not saying 100% Notre Dame's going to win this game. But that's going to be a game. I think they could win it. Like, they're not going to go out there and get blown out. Texas A&M's about to win the SEC, and Notre Dame beat them.
I don't think they would get wiped off the map. I also think Texas.
Stop right there. Terry, who does Texas A&M play the last game of the year? And you please tell me their path to winning the SEC. Texas A&M ends the season against Texas. So if that's who you're rolling with, Texas A&M over Texas, let's put that on the record.
I'm not doing that, man. But listen, if they win that game, they're going to be winning the SEC, and Notre Dame beat them, so they're basically SEC champs. Come on, man.
I don't think they win that one either.
Here, take over for 1 sec. I'll be right back.
No worries.
Go for it. But yeah, I'm with Ron. I really think there's only really probably 3 teams right now, and unfortunately, Georgia learning their lesson after 2 losses, probably one of the more dangerous teams in college football. I mean, we know the talent they have. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of teams lurking, but I know it's probably Ohio State, Oregon, and then insert team here as far as actual contenders who deserve probably a shot, because it's pretty much a hornet's nest after that of you don't know what you're going to get. A lot of these teams have been inconsistent. Oregon, week in, week out, continues to show up and show that they're going to show up on Saturdays. Ohio State, a 1-point loss to Oregon, continues to show up, show out. don't have any precise, maybe the Nebraska game, any other game where you look at it, it's like, well, they, there's a lot of inconsistency with no team. No, they pretty much blow teams out, and you can micro criticize them and say you could have done this better, but you kind of know what you're going to get on Saturdays. After you move on from there, Georgia, you don't know. I mean, Tennessee, you don't know. Notre Dame, that's great, but with their schedule, they're another almost Miami after that game is where you don't know because you're just like waiting for the other shoe to drop. So that's why I say it's probably these two Big Ten teams plus one, and then after that, who the hell knows?
Who's the plus one? Is it Georgia, like you two said?
I would probably take the best, whatever team makes it out the SEC as the plus one who could probably go and beat Ohio State or Oregon. Maybe. We don't know that yet, but I'm sure it's possible. They have the talent. But like I said, you probably missed that. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop with Notre Dame because they're another Miami. I'm waiting for, these other SEC teams to kind of. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my thing paused.
Q turned into a statue. I saw Terry's face, and I was typing, and I looked. I'm like, what just happened? I'm like, I hear Q talking, and then he just stopped.
Everyone paused, so I knew it was me.
Q's having some issues. I can't hear him.
Yeah, Q is having some technical issues. I don't know if you want to drop and come back and see if your internet resets. I did want to pull up the games of the week for us to take a look at. I mean, we got Ole Miss, Florida getting things going with DJ Lagway having some success at quarterback. Big win this past weekend at Florida. We got Kansas, Colorado, big implications on the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma, Alabama, a new SEC matchup. Notre Dame versus Army, another big one. Guys, which game are you guys most excited about this upcoming weekend?
You back, Q?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, go ahead. That's you, man.
You already know. You can start at the top. You got a top 5 matchup on Saturday. College football playoff reveals. I've been talking about this game for 2 weeks and putting it in the show titles. So I have to pick this one. I think this is another notch on the proving belt for Ohio State. They had that loss against Oregon. We bounced back against Penn State. Now we have Indiana, and it all set up that rematch. We got to go through Indiana and get it done. I think Ohio State probably should roll a little bit this game. I'm not saying to go blow Indiana out, but I think there's another chance to show that they continue to be a contender in college football, along with Oregon, who's probably been the only team to be consistent and show they're a contender week in, week out. So, that's the game we're looking forward to the most. So I have to start there. So sorry if I took somebody else's.
I mean, it's the obvious game. We might as well say forget the rest of these games and just jump right into Ohio State, Indiana before we get out of here because I want to talk to my guy Terry about it. Terry, I'm standing on the ledge and I'm ready to do it. And I don't know if you guys should talk me out of it, but Q said I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I keep saying this game is giving me 2021 Michigan State vibes. I feel like the Buckeyes are going to come in here and fuck them up. It's taking everything in me to be respectful of Indiana. But someone was talking to me on Blue Sky yesterday and said, oh, you guys have to get past Indiana. And I said, do you know what the #1 song on Billboard was the last time Indiana beat Ohio State? You guys want to throw any guesses out there? How long it's been? Do you guys know the year?
No. Well, I might actually know the year. Was it 2006?
It was 1988. October 8th, 1988.
I knew it was the 80s. I didn't know when.
Lost the #1 song in America, "Love Bites" by Def Leppard.
That was my second guess.
I'm just so confused why people are concerned going into this game. I will be dead ass wrong if Indiana comes in here and blows us out or kicks our ass. But how is an Ohio State fan? I am old. I graduated high school a very long time ago. I was not alive the last time this team beat us. This has never happened in my lifetime. So I just want to know from Buckeye fans out there that are worried about this game, how are you worried about, Buckeye fans that are around the same age as me, Buckeye fans that have never seen this happen in their life? What is making you nervous about this game, about why this could potentially happen?
Well, Tara, I'll let you go ahead and spit on this game. So give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the only thing that makes me a little nervous about the game, which is like, I mean, when I say a little, I mean like a tiny bit, is just like knowing that Ryan Day can choke up. Knowing that Ryan Day can choke up in a game and just kind of not go with the game plan that usually works in big games, and just fall back on, like, I mean, I do think we have fail safes this year, though. We have Chip Kelly in there, and it seems like they're giving Jim Knowles more kind of leeway to do what he wants to do. So hopefully we don't have something like that. And if Ryan Day just goes out here and does what he needs to do, I'm with you, Ron. I think it's going to get ugly.
Terry, even can I piggyback off what you said there? Even in those scenarios where you say that the Buckeyes fall into tendencies or do things that could put them, what is the thing that the Buckeyes could get caught up trying to do that worries you against Indiana? Like, because like when I think about those scenarios, okay, cool, the run game's not that diverse. Are you telling me that you believe that even with a crazy schemed up run game that Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson aren't going to be able to run on Indiana? Are you telling me that Will Howard's deep ball is going to be so deficient that they're going to be able to put 11 people in the box, or they're going to be able to put 9 people in the box and just have 2 people on the outside covering Jeremiah Smith, and they're going to let a receiver just run free? I just don't understand the scenario of, even if the Buckeyes start to, I guess, get into a box as far as the things that they're doing and become predictable in the way that this Ohio State team can be in big games, or it seems like they get tight. I feel like even a tight Ohio State team should, with the level of talent that they have, not be able to be challenged by this Indiana team. But not challenged as far as not being competitive, but challenged as in a real threat to win this game.
Yeah. 100%. I agree with you. And you know what? I think that I was just trying to be too nice, to be honest, because I've been with you this whole time, Ron. I do think that this game is going to get ugly. I think if this team is what we think they are, which I think that they genuinely are, like, I think we have one of the best teams in college football. I think they'll go into this game and they'll take care of business, and it won't really be close.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I mean, I don't want to call it, because it may be a little disrespectful, but it's very much feels like a pros versus Joes, where it's like, yeah, Indiana's a good team. They have good guys. I mean, I look at Curtis Rourke every week. He's in the Heisman, contention here. If he was quarterback at Ohio State, would we really be talking about him? Like, he'd probably would not be close to the starter and somewhere buried a little bit in the roster. I just feel like this Ohio State team, it's too many dudes out here. And yeah, I started to get that Penn State feeling again, where Jim Knowles comes in. I don't expect them to blank them like they necessarily did Penn State, but do I expect the Indiana offense to have a lot of success? No, not really. Maybe a little bit. And Jim Knowles will probably go in and shut that shit down with the athletes he has, or he should be able to do it. That's kind of the feeling I get. So I don't necessarily know it'll be a blowout, but I feel like this will be a game where we look at it, but after, and we say, well, it may have had a close point, but it was never out of control. And that's the time I feel like Ohio State has too many resources to kind of put their stamp on this game and control the game, going offensively and defensively down the line, to where it's like, okay, it might have been 14-10 in the second quarter, but we never felt scared.
I want to ask you guys about this comment here, but it's a top 5 team not named Penn State, but it's named Indiana. Like, that's the thing. That comment is disrespectful to Penn State, because you know what Penn State has that Indiana does not? A blue chip ratio of the caliber to win a national championship. Bud Elliott puts out the blue chip ratio every year of teams that have enough 4 and 5 stars traditionally compared to the lowest amount of 4 and 5 stars from a national championship winner. And it's always over 50%. And there are 16 teams currently in the nation with a blue chip ratio above 50%. And you know what? One of the teams that's not on that list, it's Indiana. Penn State is 12 on that list because they have a 63% blue chip ratio. So that's what I'm saying as far as not believing in this matchup, because we're not even talking about a talent composite of the caliber of Penn State. And it felt like the talent was the difference between Ohio State and Penn State when they matched up this year. The previous year, you see a guy like JTT, a 5-star, a top 5 player in the country, completely decide that game. I am just having trouble with this idea. What Indiana game is most impressive to you? The team up north?
I mean, probably that felt like the only team that maybe can give them a little bit of trouble that they've played, and they gave them a lot of trouble. And we can go over this top 5 thing of top 5 teams that Ohio State and Ryan Day struggle. I mean, the top 5 teams he lost to would be like in Oregon, like a national championship caliber team. It's not like any team that's top 5 we lose to. We'd probably beat 3 of the top 5 every year. There's probably 2 teams that could probably beat us most years that we walk out. So I don't feel like I'm going to see Indiana playing for a natty in a couple weeks. I mean, if they are, we will surely see it on Saturday and beyond and say, well,
I won't.
Top 5 team, but that's not going to happen.
I don't know what type of
cable. Watching this shit.
I don't know what type of cable package they have in heaven, but if Indiana's playing in the national championship and Ohio State's at home, I'll be testing my wings on a bridge.
Unless they're that good, I don't expect Ohio State to struggle against them. They're not 2022 Georgia. They're not 2023 Michigan. They're not 2020 Alabama. Like, those are the teams Ohio State loses to when they play these top 5 matchups.
You see Punk has it in the chat. Indiana, a first-round bye. Book it. Check the odds on that. But before we get out of here, Doreen has a good message. Pat McAfee and Fox Noon in Columbus partay this weekend. If you were at the game or if you're going to the game, let us know in the chat. Which setup are you going to? You going to see Urban over at the Big Noon, or are you going to see Pat McAfee? Fellas, if you guys were at the game, which pregame setup are you pulling up to?
I'll go first. It would have to be College Game Day. I mean, I've never had the chance to go, and I've been watching it since I was 2. So I have to go to College Game Day. Love what Fox does for the Big Ten besides make us play at noon every week. So I'm gonna be over there at ESPN.
Yeah, same here, dude. I really like what Pat McAfee's doing for, like, it just bringing the juice to that program. So I would definitely have to go check that out.
I mean, I have to go see my fellow Yinzer and Pat McAfee, a Pittsburgh guy. I've seen Pat do stand-up live back in Pittsburgh. I've been a big fan of Pat forever. Everyone knows that I almost went to West Virginia. So I have been following Pat's career for a very long time. I would absolutely go check out the College Game Day and Pat McAfee and Big Noon. I hope that there's an empty crowd there and there's no one there to watch them. They're gonna have to put the cardboard COVID stands up to make it look like there's actually fans at Big Noon. Like, people should start protesting those until they start getting us better games. And if they want to show up for the Fox Big Night kickoff, then we'll show up for the pregame show. But if they want to keep making us have these game days, no, thank you.
Big afternoon kickoff. What would this game do at 3:30? Good Lord Jesus.
If they had the big afternoon kickoff, that would be fucking hilarious. But that's all I have for today. A big shout out to our guy Terry T for joining us on today's episode. Fellas, let the people know where they could find you.
Yeah, you can find me at CFB_stop on Twitter. Then on the Fans Edge every Wednesday with my guy Mike on this platform here, around 7:30 Eastern time when we go live. That's like our national show. And then come back every week to catch me on here, usually on Tuesdays on the Buckeye Roast.
Tuesdays.
So, yeah.
There you go. Make sure you give Terry a follow. Appreciate everyone in the chat going in. Again, the chat was booming. Anytime we miss a day, y'all seem to miss us a lot, and you show up the next day. So we greatly appreciate it, man. It's good. It's fun to be in here. Shout out to the members. Shout out to Doreen. Charles Green's around here somewhere. Yeah, make sure you like that video, like and retweet on Twitter if you want to find me. I'm City Boy Quentin on Twitter. Planet Johnson on Instagram. I do movies at Minor League Films here on YouTube. That's where you can find me. Ron, get us out of here.
I would love to get us out of here, but I can't accept this disrespect. Pat White, Tavon Austin, and Pat McAfee, the only players from WVU that anyone knows. Noel Devine, Geno Smith, Pac-Man Jones. I could go on, but I have to get to work. How dare you disrespect the Mountaineers like that? A former elite college football program back in my day. Not so much anymore. Shout out to Rich Rod for for abandoning the program to go make Michigan a shithole. I guess it was all well worth it if he was going to go sabotage that program when he left. So appreciate everybody tuning in. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at 2Ts. It's 2_TES. You can find me here weekdays for the Buckeye Roast Monday through Friday with my guy QP Ski. We have a special guest Pat on Friday, Wednesdays in the Bleacher Report app for our Week 13 preview, Saturdays for the college football pregame show on the Men's Sports platform. And you can find me on Blue Sky if you are inclined to use. My followers are almost up to 300, so check me out over there if you're on Blue Sky. We appreciate everybody tuning in. You guys know how this ends. It's always go Bucks, and of course, OH.
Yo.